So I think I was sort of put into a leadership role out of necessity and a little bit out of choice. And I have developed into the leader that I am by just a lot of experience, being willing to learn, being willing to work with people, having been fortunate enough to work with people who were willing to sort of mentor me as a leader, whether it was intentional or unintentional. And you sort of like determine what some people do that seems to work well, and you sort of model some of your behaviors about them. So I think as a leader, I would say I'm somebody who has actually grown as I've gotten older with the position. I've been chair since 2001, so I think a big part of it is just experience. I would say that my number one probably guiding principle as a leader would be the word respect. As a department chair, you've got a lot of different people that you work with. You obviously have to work with upper administration, particularly deans and associate deans who have goals and so forth. You have faculty members that you work with who have departmental goals, but also have personal ambitions for their own careers. And then obviously you have staff and students. And I really do think you have to treat each one of those people with respect. You're going to be dealing with situations out of necessity where there's not agreement, and choosing a side when you're trying to get the facts is not going to help solve the problem. So just give everybody proper respect. And then I'd say the second principle is that when it is time that you have to make a choice or make a stand or make a decision, to make that decision and to have a reason why you made that decision. I've always said that a decision always has somebody who's not going to like the outcome, because if you're making a decision between two options, one of the options that doesn't get chosen, somebody is going to prefer. But if you can make that decision based on fact and explain why you make that decision, I think you do get the respect of people, based on what you've done. How has this changed during the pandemic? That's a good question. I don't think the things that I've just described have changed much. Obviously, how you interact with people has changed. We're dealing with new situations, and we're dealing with different modalities of interacting with people. So much with Zoom now instead of face to face. But I don't think that my guiding principles of how I am as a leader have dramatically changed much due to the pandemic. It's just that some of the problems that you have to deal with have changed. Question. One of them, I think, and this is not necessarily as much as being a leader, but just being a member of the VCU community, is the growth, my personal growth with technology. Prior to March, I had never organized a Zoom meeting. I had been on a Zoom meeting where I was invited and I clicked the button, but I'd never organized, how to set it up and actually been the one that was hosting. And I would say at this point, that is every day of the week, every week, there's been at least one and sometimes multiple Zoom meetings. I've actually had days, and this is specific to your situation, where I was chairing the Robertson School Director Search, and we had 3 consecutive days where we interviewed people from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I was coordinating the Zoom meetings. So that piece, and not just Zoom, but technology overall. I mean, I've always been one who's used statistical technology in my courses, but some of the other technology that we have to do to teach courses remotely or to teach courses in person, but to record so that those individuals who are somewhere else can actually participate in the classes. So I'd say the one thing that I've learned has been technology. I think from a leadership perspective, the thing that I would say would be more about compassion. And when I say that word, I mean understanding that people have so many different situations. there are so many different people that facing so many new problems. And I'll just use a student perspective. You know, you've got the student who literally does not have access to the internet for 3 days, and they had quizzes due or they had a test due. There was no way that they could complete that. And I think what I've learned is that you have to be a little bit more adaptable to the situation, to allow things. So I would say as a leader, and the example I gave was with students, but I think it's the same thing when you're dealing with your faculty or you're dealing with administration. You have to become a little bit more adaptable to understand that, you know, you're keeping the big picture in mind, and that's why we here as VCU, we want to support the students, we want to support the faculty, we want to produce research. What can we do as leaders to do that? So I would say that is really the other piece that I probably learned during this period. Never been a department, at least under my leadership, that really wanted to do a lot of meetings. You know, we would have our meetings at the beginning of every semester. We would have meetings that were necessary to discuss the things that needed to happen. But one thing that I think changed dramatically within the department, and this was at my direction and also at the direction of other faculty in the department who sort of do lead certain things, was we were meeting every 2 weeks from April, May, June, July. Even though most of the faculty were 9-month faculty and they were not under contract, we were meeting just so that we could keep people engaged with each other, because we weren't coming to campus, we weren't seeing each other. So I think that was one thing that became very positive, is that the level of engagement among the faculty in the department for those sort of meetings when they didn't even have to participate at all was really, really good. The other piece, and this is more at the upper level, and this would start at the president level and I think go down through provost office and dean's office, et cetera, is how much time those people have spent trying to make decisions and put things in place so that the university can function in whatever mechanism it's going to function. You know, again, decisions mean there's 2 options or more options, and everybody's not always going to agree. And they're having to make decisions about things that no one really knows what's going to happen. So I think the fact that there's been such constant communication, everything I have not agreed with, but a lot of things I have agreed with, everything I've not understood, but most things I have understood. I would say from a leadership perspective of what I've seen is that the fact that the leaders at this university have been dealing with unknown problems and doing so as professionally as possible and communicating as regularly as possible what the decisions are, why the decisions are being made. I think that's been the most positive piece from a leadership standpoint that I've observed, you know, basically in the past 6 months from when the COVID time started. And we think from a joking standpoint is the 3rd week of March, we had just gotten off spring break and I just gotten off a cruise. So it would have been great if I could have just told myself to stay in Florida and don't come back to the problem. But I don't think that's really what you're asking. I think if I would have known the 3rd week of March what I know now, I don't know if things would have been that much different. I mean, we realize now that things didn't go back to normal as quickly as we were thinking or hoping that they were. And I think me personally and the department and probably a lot of other people didn't make what we could call semi-permanent changes as quickly as we could have, because we were assuming that, okay, this will be past when the summer gets here and it heats up and the virus gets killed and it goes away. But that didn't happen. And I think if I would have known in March what I know now, I don't think I would have changed the seriousness of how I took it, because I did take it seriously. But I think with some of the decisions that I made from a job perspective in terms of teaching and research and leadership as an administrator, I probably would have moved quicker to make decisions and make changes that would have become more permanent than what I actually did. And as a quick example, when we made the transition for teaching, we basically created videos. I did no Zoom meetings with the students, none of that. But now that's what I'm doing with my class. So I would have probably taken the ambition to learn how to do that earlier if I would have thought it was going to be part of my job in the fall and not just a 7-week or 6-week inconvenience to get us through the spring semester. So I would say that those are the primary things that I would have done differently in March